Hello, hi all. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining our first of many Let's Talk About It Now live series. I'm going to be giving it a couple seconds while people hop on. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and pin this comment. For those of you have already joined, go ahead and let us know where you're joining from, comment your state, country. Hi. Go ahead and pin that comment. All right, so I'm Veronica, social media manager at Now Medical, and in honor of Women's Equality Day, which is tomorrow, we'll be discussing the gender healthcare gap. So for those who don't know what that is, the gender healthcare gap describes how your gender identity can have a bearing on the medical attention that you receive and the medical attention and treatment that you receive. So we know that the U.S. primary healthcare system does not effectively meet women's needs as they age and transition through stages of life. And because of this, we really stress the importance of prioritizing preventative care. It is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself. So to make it easier for you, we created the healthcare journey that's personalized just for you. We'll be touching base more on our healthcare journey shortly. And if you're ready to create your own personalized healthcare plan, go ahead and click the link in our bio where you can learn more and get started. So now, without further ado, we're going to give a warm welcome to two powerhouse women in the healthcare industry, our CEO and co-founder, Dr. Priti Jain, and our lead advanced care practitioner, Alexis Perez. So Alexis and Dr. Priti, if you're in here, just go ahead and request to join us, and we'll let you right in. And if any of you have any questions, there's a Q&A box right at the bottom of your screen. Just go ahead and type or click that and then type your question in the box. Hi, Soleil. Dr. Priti has joined. She'll be right in. Just go ahead and request, Dr. Priti. Hi, Mirsa. All right. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Veronica.
How are you? We're just waiting on Alexis. She should be in here.
Good. I'm glad we're finally talking about this.
Yes, I'm so excited about this conversation.
Me too.
All right. Let's see, where is she?
I think something that we all need to talk about. This is long overdue. Hey, everybody. I see a lot of messages coming through.
From the Philippines,
Yeah, I
from the
know.
Bronx, New York.
Hey, Rati. I see so many people joining. Oh my God. This is so exciting.
It is so exciting. This is our first of many, just so you all know. We will be
Yeah.
doing this again the beginning of September, the end of September, twice a month.
And Veronica, what is so interesting is I feel like people talk about, you know, like a gap in wages because of gender and a lot of other things. And I think what a lot of people don't talk about is the gap in healthcare, right? Based on gender and amongst many other things, right? So I think it's a really,
Yes.
really important that we need to talk about. And oh, that is so cute. Preeti Jain 7.
You have such a nice
Right?
smile.
Um,
Okay, so she has joined. Alexis, just click that plus bottom or a plus button at the bottom of the screen.
Sorry, guys, I'm not
There
very
we
tech,
go.
so
Accept.
Hey,
Yay!
It wasn't showing up before. I don't know, but I'm
It's
here.
okay. It's technical difficulties. But
awesome.
hello, ladies. Thank you so much for taking the time to join. I'm so excited about this conversation. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to both of you so you can start by introducing yourself. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Priti.
Hey, everybody. My name's Dr. Priti Jain, and I am the founder and the CEO of Now Medical. Now Medical is really an amazing urgent care center, if I may say so myself. And we are really excited because we have the amazing, awesome Alexis Perez, who started Women's Health. And I think that is kind of what stoked this conversation a little bit. So happy to, have Alexis join, and Veronica is our amazing social media person
Thank
who's
you.
kind of introducing me back on Instagram. So I'm a little like shaky here, but happy to be here. Alexis?
Thank you, Dr. Priti. My name is Alexis. I'm a physician assistant and one of the lead advanced care practitioners here at Now Med. Very blessed to have this position. So thank you, Dr. Priti. And yes, I started the GYN program here at Jackson Heights. So we have GYN Jackson
Yeah.
Heights and in the Bronx.
Yeah, and for those of you who were wondering, we will be saving this video and posting it later so you can reference back to this. But in the meantime, just go ahead and ask any questions that you might have in the chat button below. There's a Q&A button. Click that, type it in, and we'll gladly answer those questions. So I did briefly mention what the gender healthcare gap is, but Dr. Priti, can you please further explain?
Yeah, so I think there are several key points that we did want to highlight, or that I guess especially I want to highlight as a woman physician. I think obviously the big question is, why is there this gap? But I think there are just some basic facts that I think we should really talk about. So what is really interesting is, and even some of these stats shocked me when I found out. So only 4% of the healthcare R&D actually, only 4% of that R&D spend goes towards really looking at women's health issues in the United States, right? Femtech received only 3% of digital health funding. And this to me was the most shocking, that up until 1993, women were actually excluded from medical research. And what Alexis pointed out yesterday was, which was like beyond comprehension, was it wasn't just human females, it was also animal females. Am I correct, Alexis?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, also animal females that were excluded from research. So obviously, a lot of studies that we rely on to provide good and standard of care medical treatment really depends on the research and on the studies that we are referencing. And if women were excluded from a lot of those studies, I think to me it's a little concerning, right? Like, is this going to work as well? Is this not going to work as well? So I think those are really issues. But I think what most of us know, that across 770 diseases, or I don't know if most of us know this, but I want to share this, from diabetes to cancer, I feel like women are diagnosed 4 years later than men are diagnosed. Women also tend to have different symptomatology, right? Like for a woman, a heart attack may present in a different way than it may for a man. Also, we've learned that people that are of color tend to have, irrespective of income, irrespective of where they live in the country, they tend to have a poor quality, they receive poorer quality of healthcare. And also, research also shows that women are more likely than men to die in any situation where CPR is needed. I mean, I could go on and on, but I think there is just some really profound statistics out there that are kind of, a little worrisome. And I think it's high time we started to talk about it. Right. And
Hence
Alexis,
this
do you want to?
conversation.
Yeah. So I definitely agree, and there are so many factors that play into this gender bias in healthcare. Less than 30% of medical schools incorporate a gender specific topic in curriculum, right? And so from baseline, from the get, we're not taught in medical school how to treat women specifically, right? 9% of the medical schools offer, only 9% offer women's health what are those elective courses. So how are we supposed to know what to do with women in healthcare from beginning to end, right? And this is before puberty, during puberty, during pregnancy, menopause. There's so many, we go through so many different stages in life. So it is a very, we are complex humans, but the problem is medically, we're not really taught how to deal with them. And it's also, I also find that women's health issues are often stigmatized, whereas men's health issues are often just out and about. They're promoting Viagra, they're promoting hair loss, a bunch of different topics for men, but you don't often see commercials or propaganda or anything about menopause or what to do for postpartum depression after the woman has bared a child for 9 months. So that, I think, is a big issue in our industry overall.
Yeah, I think the commercials is like such a great point. All you have to do is turn on the radio and you'll hear Viagra this,
Yeah.
erectile dysfunction this.
And it's not taxed, right? That was another thing that we discussed. Viagra is not taxed, but our sanitary napkins, tampons, pads, and whatever, they put a tax on it because they're considered a luxury. Yeah, they're considered a luxury item. I'm not sure where that came from, but probably from a gender bias previous to 25 years ago.
Yeah, the stigma on periods. So one question, well, we're gonna take questions from the audience. Audience, if you have any questions, just feel free to put it in that Q&A box. In the meantime, we're gonna be answering some questions that we received prior to this. So the second question that I have is, what are the factors of the gender healthcare gap?
So I think one of the, first of all, like Alexis mentioned, I think stigma around women's health, whether it's like sexual pleasure for women, whether it's menopause, whether it's, puberty, STIs, a lot of stuff that is, still considered taboo. And I think being a person of color and coming from a culture, I know that there are definitely cultural biases that also play into this. So I'll give you a simple example. Like for a woman of my culture, it's always about taking care of the family, right? Like, and I feel like at that, I'm putting my own healthcare, like I'm sacrificing my own healthcare at the cost of my family. So I think that whole mindset of, I need to take care of other people, I need to do this, I think sometimes gets in the way of us women really taking care of ourselves. So yes, I think that to a very small extent, we have to prioritize ourselves and we have to keep ourselves, because if we are healthy, everybody's going to be healthy, right? And we all know that as women, when we prioritize ourselves, our families do better, right?
Absolutely.
Like in all aspects. So definitely prioritizing ourselves. I think one of the other things is like, sometimes there's an unconscious bias, and unfortunately, like there's certain diagnoses that women are more likely to have, such as chronic migraine, anxiety disorders, or sometimes even like as physicians or as healthcare providers, we may label a complex symptomatology as, maybe this person has a histrionic personality disorder, maybe this person is anxious. And sometimes I think those unconscious biases or those things tend to get in the way of providing excellent or a very high standard of medical care. I think one of the other things that Alexis pointed out was, our medical school curriculum, but I also, up until now, even now, like to a certain extent, it seems that healthcare is dominated by men, right? Like a lot of leadership positions go to men in healthcare. So I think we need to kind of start talking about these things a little bit. But I think those are
a bit.
Yeah. To talk about this a lot, not a little. And I think a lot goes into like creating that gender bias or gender gap, I guess, in healthcare. Alexis, I'm sure you have some really good, insightful thoughts in this as well.
Yeah. So, going back to what you said about the research studies only incorporating women just 25 years ago, it really plays into, it's a huge factor because there's a difference in the commonly used treatment that's developed. It's predominantly towards men. And so, the treatment for migraines that they may treat a man with a migraine is much different than what a woman might need for a migraine, or even the causes behind the migraine. So that definitely plays, a huge role. the fact that, piggybacking on the fact that you mentioned, mostly culturally, the women are the caregivers, right? And we're usually in that sandwich generation where we're the caregivers for the young and the old, and everything, in between. And so there are studies that show when the woman passes away, it is much more detrimental financially on the family than it is, unfortunately, when the men pass away, as it affects the children, it affects the husbands, and everybody else in the family. So also lack of employment equality, right? So the men have typically are the ones that have these awesome jobs with great benefits, and women are still not equally able to get hold of those jobs. We're kind of left to depend on a man, right, to have a good benefits, or to seek some sort of health care with the poor benefits that we are able to get. Right.
Yeah.
Also, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, also lack of bodily autonomy, right? We're still struggling. What are we in 2022? We're still arguing about birth control and abortions and things that we should have control of.
Or even just knowing the names of the parts of your body is like a vulva versus vagina.
Oh, honey, that's a different story. That's a different topic.
No, and I'm like, we went to Iceland a few years ago, and I remember like we did a walking tour, and the guy took us to the city hall, and there's a big embroidered painting of a vagina, and he said, look, nobody feels shy about saying the word penis, but everybody like freaks out when they have to say the word vagina, and like say it all. He's like, women have to be comfortable, like everybody has to be comfortable. And I feel like there's so much politicization of women's health issues. It becomes a political issue when it doesn't need to, right? Like we should have autonomy over what happens to our bodies. And I feel like that it becomes a political issue without any resolution, right? And I think also exactly what I said earlier, there's all this publicity about like ED and about, erectile dysfunction. The whole world is like running to treat it. The whole world is running to take care of it. Meanwhile, like how much do we talk about the same issues for women?
Right.
When
do you
ever
of libido during menopause?
Yeah, or
lack of libido after having a baby.
Yeah, and when we do talk about those issues, we don't even use like words. We use feminine hygiene, and we never say just vagina. But when you listen to like commercials about ED, you hear like penile and
so true. Yep.
Yeah. So one question that I do have is, how does primary health care and preventative care play a role in addressing the gaps and barriers?
You want to take this, Alexis, first, and then I can chime in?
Oh, sure. So primary care, is associated with positive health outcome, right? And so it should be you want to say a one-stop shop, but unfortunately, women have to seek specialties for things that they're going through, right? If they might need a GYN, they might need a psychiatrist, they might need, and then they need also their primary care doctor, and eventually, they might need Urogyn, because it seems that primary care physicians are not exactly trained to, cover the whole package as one. But as we bring more light to the situation, primary care can play a huge role in women's health and closing the gap by understanding what our needs are. The differences in, like she said, the symptoms or the treatment between the men and women. And I think that's what, under the awesome ruling of Dr. Priti, I think that's what we're aiming for here at Now Medical.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think studies have shown that if people we could prevent almost 130,000 deaths a year, which is a staggering number if people received good primary health care, right? And I think we all, as healthcare providers, have to sit back and kind of think like, is the healthcare that we're providing, is it equitable? Are we comfortable with talking about feminine issues? Are we thinking about how gender, like what, are we addressing gender issues in in a normal manner, right? Like there was a study that said that a lot of transgender women are really subjected to really, unexpected curiosity from the healthcare provider, which actually which makes them lose trust in the healthcare system, right? So like, I think there's all these factors that play in, and with primary care, it's not just about, oh, did you get your mammogram? Did you get your blood work? I think a lot of it is like, what is your social environment like, right? Like, what is your mental, like just mental well-being? We need to talk about a lot of these issues, because I think when we talk about being in isolation, medical care, it really is in primary care. It has to all work together like this. Like it has to be behavioral health care, mental wellness, social wellness, right? We all know a social support system plays a huge part. Like certain countries like Nigeria and India have the best outcomes in patients with schizophrenia because of the social support that they have, which I think is something that we absolutely need to address with our patients. Like, what is our social support system? Because you can give them all the medicines you want, but if they're not getting that support at home, you can't do anything about it. And I think those are things that we really need to talk about. And another thing that we don't touch upon, which is outside the realm of primary care, but like, how many primary care physicians ask women about domestic violence? Right? Like, it's not something that a lot of primary care physicians are going to ask their patients, but we know, we know that women suffer a lot of, not just women, even men do, but like how many of us ask our patients? That's a big social issue, right? And it's something like we need to ask about so many other things that I feel like sometimes can get ignored. And I think that's what we're really aiming to do, to kind of really.
I definitely agree. It's also noticed, and there are actually a few studies, right? And then one of them that I read is that, and it's pretty obvious, that the women in the top, I guess, 1% of socioeconomic class often have better health outcomes and live 10 years longer than women in lower socioeconomic situations. But the abundance of primary care that people have access to greatly affects hospitalization, cancer mortality, heart disease, stroke, and just the overall their life in general, right? Their life expectancy, how happy they live. So, but unfortunately, we've seen such a decline after COVID. I mean, I've heard hundreds of PCPs either retire or maybe seek other jobs. I don't know where they're going, but the PCP access has definitely declined since the pandemic, because it was noted that they just did not want to deal, or they didn't know how to, right? And so just like they're not sure how to deal with women issues, there's a lot of other aspects that they may not be fully aware of.
Yeah, and I think,
and speaking
like,
sorry,
go ahead, Veronica.
No, I was going to say, speaking of primary care, I feel like that's under Dr. Priti's lovely ruling, that's where the healthcare journey does come in. So for those who don't know, the healthcare journey is a free, individualized, curated health plan tailored by the team of medical professionals at Now Medical. So the team will guide you step by step through your medical milestones. You will have your own medical concierge who will book and manage all of your medical appointments, remind you of all your upcoming appointments, and ensure that you're taking the proper steps to optimal health. So it's kind of just empowering people to, take or, prioritize their health, right? And I think that is why preventative and primary care is so important.
Yeah, and I think healthcare should be simple, it should be clear, it should be transparent, but above all, it should be proactive, not reactive. I feel like sometimes, and especially as healthcare providers, we are approaching it from the back end, right? Oh yeah, now you have blood pressure, let's take care of it. Instead of, oh wow, you know what? Let's see what we can do to prevent blood pressure. I see that your mom has blood pressure, your dad has blood pressure. What are we going to do about it? So let's make sure that it's something you don't get, right? Like diabetes is very familiar, right? You want to make sure that anybody whose parents are diabetics, you want to keep them out of that space where they could end up getting diabetes, right? So I think a lot of it needs to be preventive. Simple example, vaccines, right? How many people know that your tetanus needs to be updated every 10 years and sooner
Yeah.
if you've been in a bad, or if you sustained a bad injury, right? Like all these are basic vaccine things that people don't, that people don't realize, and it's not their job to realize. It's our job to tell them, to inform them that, hey, this is what is needed, and I think that's where we really need to make it be more proactive than reactive.
100%.
Absolutely. And, I think diving deeper into patients' lives, and yes, it does take energy and it does take time, but that's what we swore in for, right? That's what we signed up for. So merely, okay, you have high blood pressure, but what's going on in your life, right? What's causing this high blood pressure? We automatically assume it's family or, lifestyle. And yeah, it could be lifestyle, but what's causing you to live that lifestyle? Why are you eating McDonald's every day at 2 in the morning? Oh, because you have to work 3 jobs and you work overnight. I get it now, so I've had lectured so many patients, unfortunately, on changing their jobs or just changing their schedule. I'm like, listen, I can put a band-aid on the wound and get your blood pressure down. But honestly, until you change your job, you remove the stress, not your wife and your kids, but you remove other life stresses, this is going to be an issue, right? So we have to get you in the gym. You have to exercise. You have to sleep. There's things that have to be done to improve that. I can't fix it all without your help, right? And so getting patients really involved in their own healthcare is very important, but it takes a conversation that not many PCPs are willing to have.
Absolutely.
100%.
I think it takes
What
a
are
lot.
some? Oops, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Veronica.
No, go ahead. I was
No,
going to ask another question, but I want to hear the rest of what you had to say
yeah,
first.
I think it takes trust on both ends, right? Like, especially for a patient to trust you. And I think, like, some of the things that I just ask, like, straight up, like, are you depressed? And sometimes it's just like, and I'm always shocked at how many people will become tearful or will start crying and admit to being depressed. And I can give them any amount of medicines they want, but if they're depressed, is that something that's underlying like their whole lifestyle? And then that's a conversation they need to have, right? So I think it's like so many little things, so many little tweaks that we can do when the patient trusts us enough to talk to us about it. And I think it's, for me, that is like one of the biggest rewards that I get out of like, practicing medicine. Go ahead, Veronica.
So piggybacking off of patients talking to you, what are some tips that you can give for patients to not only feel more comfortable, but also advocate for themselves in medical settings?
Absolutely. So I think the first one I would say is just like you never lie to your lawyer and your barber, you your doctor. One, always be truthful, always be honest. And it doesn't matter what it is, we've heard it all. And we've heard even more than that. So just like be very comfortable, because if you think your doctor hasn't heard it, you'd be surprised. Number one. Number two, I think be an advocate for your own healthcare issues, right? Like don't take, oh, you know what, we can't do anything more about this, or like this is it, like we don't know what's going on. Like pursue it, like pursue them until your curiosity is satisfied. Come to the visit prepared with notes so that you're not taken off guard. If you're given any papers from the doctor's office, read them. If they have your discharge papers, read them. But I think above all, be your own healthcare advocate. Nobody's going to fight for your health like you are. And I can tell you, for all of us that think that, I agree, time is our most valuable resource, but health is our biggest asset. I'm telling you, even now, even if I have a fever, I start to cry because I'm just like, life is over for me, right? Like it's, to me, health is. So I feel like that's just something that we really need to be mindful of, that it's our biggest asset. And what are we going to do to like make it optimal, make it our best? And I think for me, that would be like the biggest thing, right? Alexis, is there something that you want to add on?
Yeah. So I think, a part of advocating for your own health, don't be scared to go for a second opinion, right? Don't be scared to question your provider if you don't understand, or even if you think that they're kind of barking up the wrong tree. It's okay. You have to advocate for yourself, and you are part of this relationship in getting down to what's going on and how can we help you, and what can we do to treat you. Also, you know, explaining what you've already done or what you've tried to do at home, or even if you've taken someone's medication that they gave you, speak up, let us know so that we know, okay, this didn't work, so let's try something else, or it did work, right? You took your neighbor's blood pressure medication and it helped. Okay, so, you know, maybe we can give you something similar. Um, so, you know, and then I also mentioned the, you know, ask questions and don't be scared. Just open your mouth. I'm an advocate for that for my patients. You know, I always tell them, if you feel that something is wrong, if you feel like you don't agree with something, we can have a conversation about it. I'm not the end all be all, and you're always welcome to get a second opinion. You'll probably be right back to me, but you're welcome to get a second opinion, and you know, let me know what they said.
Yeah,
So being comfortable
absolutely.
with your provider is also important, right? And I find that even recently in GYN, I've heard time and time again, you know, my last provider or my last GYN, I wasn't comfortable with them, or they weren't speaking to me about certain things, or they kind of were just like brushing me off or brushing my symptoms off. And so they came for a second opinion, or they, you know, they just changed providers, and that's okay. You don't mesh with everyone. And your medical provider is someone that you may not mesh with, but you have to have a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
That's
And I
very
think,
relatable.
no,
Right?
absolutely. I think a lot of us don't trust our own instincts, right? Like, how many times have we heard, oh, I've had this pain for like 3 months, or like I've been bleeding abnormally for like 2 months. And, you know, you don't, because you're like, oh, it'll pass. And we
Hmm.
don't trust our own instincts. So many times we don't trust our own instincts enough, or like, you know, whatever it is. I think at the end of the day, we have to say, look, there's something, I feel like there's something wrong with me, and share it with your healthcare provider till you get an answer. And you know what?
100%.
It's something like Alexis said, we don't have to love everybody, but we still need to have a good relationship. And by good relationship, I mean you need to trust, right? So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think our main goal here is basically just to close this gap and, you know, destigmatize health. And I was just wondering what steps can be taken to create a solution in closing this gap.
Alexis, you want to start with this one?
Sure. Sure. I definitely don't think this is something that would happen overnight. This is going to take a lot of time, a lot of
Yeah.
patience, and real intention. Even if it means retraining providers, or, you know, incorporating, for instance, what we were originally speaking about was, you know, the gender specific gaps, incorporating more women's health topics in the core curriculum of medical school, PA school, NP, even nursing, right? Um, I think as time goes on and we are able to get more research with women, involving women, that will definitely help close the gap as well. Um, and getting more females in this, in you know, in our positions, that would most certainly help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also like be outspoken about women's health issues. I
Hmm.
think that's like all of us as women, and not just as women, even as men. I think when we lift our women up, we all rise. We know that for a fact, right? Like lifting each other up, lifting all the women up, the society rises in general. And I think all of us need to be outspoken about women's health issues, about the mental well-being of women. It's extremely important. It's very, very important. I can tell you, like, if I'm down in the dumps, my family's down in the dumps, right? So it's like really important that as women or even as men, like people talk about it, people make it open, people feel comfortable. You know, I don't think men are going to discuss erectile dysfunction at a party, but yeah, absolutely. Like, you know what? If there's certain things that you're facing, even when it comes to your sexual health, like be comfortable discussing it with your provider. You know, I think there are a lot of things that we have to destigmatize. It's not, oh my God, Mirza.
If mama ain't happy,
It's
ain't
true
no one
though.
happy.
It's true. It is very true.
Yeah. So
Oh, well,
absolutely, it's
if
important
anyone has
topic.
any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We are willing to answer. But ladies, thank you so much for taking the time to participate in our first session of Let's Talk About It Now. I really love the fact that like we were able to kick off this series with such an empowering theme and like really pride ourselves on guiding our community and empowering them to make their health a priority.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And I have to say, it isn't, you guys kept telling me under my amazing, it isn't me, it's my team. And when we have all these amazing women in leadership positions within the company, this is what happens. So I don't do anything. They run the show, they do everything. So thank you. It's an honor to work with every single one of you every single day. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
So thank you all
And
for
thank you
joining, and those of you who are interested. Yeah, and those of you who were interested in the healthcare journey, it was created to take the weight off your shoulders. Our concierge team is here to help you. All you have to do is click the link in our bio, which will take you to a landing page that gives you a lot more information. Scroll down a little, pop in some information, and someone will get in contact with you shortly. We look forward to seeing all of your faces in our next session. We'll be focusing on mental health awareness next month, and more information is going to be coming soon. So if you haven't already, make sure to give us a follow. And thank you all for joining. Till next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.